Hi there everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I'm here to do a review of the Empathetic Oracle. Now, if you've watched my channel, you probably have seen this deck. Also, probably if you've gotten a past life reading from me, you've probably seen this deck, although I do sometimes swap in other decks. This was a little bit of a sneaker surprise for me, not this past year, but the year before. And I actually saw this and I thought, I saw it at my local Barnes & Nobles, and I was like, oh, something about it drew me, but I really wasn't wanting to buy a deck at the moment. And so I walked away from it and left it. And that night I had a dream about this deck, and I kind of said to myself, you know, I don't really have the luxury funds to put into a deck right now, so I'm just gonna, you know, leave it go. And then it was like almost instantly after saying that to myself, you know, I had some money come through. Like it was like almost instantly, and I'm like, okay, so clearly the universe wants me to purchase this deck. I think it's the only deck that I can really say that the universe has said you must buy this deck. And so I listened and I went and picked it up, and I did not regret it whatsoever. I do have a walkthrough of this deck up. It's called the Shamanic Healing Deck, or Healing Oracle Cards, and it is a deck by Schiffer, I believe. Yeah, Schiffer Publishing, and it's gilded on the side. I have used this deck a lot. I do riffle shuffle, so there's some wearing, but it's that nice kind of wearing that looks like the deck has been used, which it has, and I love it. The only criticism that I have about this deck is the very glossy cardstock, which I am, you know, not a big fan of. It's hard on my eyes because of the way that I light my reading space for recording videos. It can, you know, real glossy cards like this can simply just be hard on my eyes. So the art style is a very primitive, and I don't mean primitive in a negative way, but it's that sort of primitive style, art style. But it reads just wonderfully. I really, really love this deck. It is a deck that I have always gotten great readings out of it. I really enjoy it, and it's a deck that I use quite a bit. So I was really surprised when I was at my Barnes & Nobles today and I saw this box, and I grabbed it and I thought, what is this? I was wondering, just because of the way it was set up. Now, it doesn't show any cards really. I mean, you've got some images here, but you don't see any actual cards, which you didn't here either. I had to look it up. But you really don't see anything there. But I just had an inkling that was this maybe the same person. So I had Googled it and looked at some of the images, and I thought, I think this is the same artist. So then, of course, I looked this deck up to, you know, on my phone, and I saw that it was the same artist. And so I literally just bought it because of that, because I've had such a great experience with this deck, and so it was just kind of a no-brainer. I do like how they look together because they look like light and dark, obviously day and night. And so we have the same kind of at the end. This is the Empathetic Oracle. Now this has another person involved, Steve Wilson, with Michelle Montuzas, which I know is the artist here. And so it's really set up similar. We have it. This was a 44 card Oracle deck. This is a 56 card Oracle deck. And you know, you're writing on the back and these kinds of things. And this is, I mean, I'm sure this is Schiffer. Everything is so much the same. Red Feather. I believe Red Feather is a subsidiary or whatever of Schiffer. If I'm wrong, somebody please let me know. I think our candles are, no, not quite, almost. So yeah, I purely picked this up because of how much I love this one. Much to my excitement, I have not looked through all of the cards. However, I did take it out and took the plastic off of it. You know, one sad thing is, again, those plastic binders, wrappers that they put them on. I don't know if you can see it in person or on the camera. I don't think so. But it bends the cardstock, and it kind of messes up the first image, or sometimes it's this image. I think it was wrapped like this, and so that first image can get messed up. So one of those things, a little minor thing there, but much to my excitement, the big difference here is, as I try to pull a card out, they are the exact same size, which I love to be able to read them together, but it's matte cardstock. The back is, I would say, more satin. It does have a little bit more of a sheen to it, not laminated like this, but it's got slightly more sheen, and the front is just a beautiful matte, satiny matte. Feels really lovely. So I wish they would put this one back out in the same cardstock, which is possible, right? It's certainly possible. So I was so excited to see that there. Let me put this back. But before we get to the cards, here's the backings, which I think are really gorgeous. And let's take a look here. Steve Wilson is an ordained spiritualist minister, shamanic healer, psychic teacher, paranormal investigator, helping people understand their empathetic gifts. Michelle Montuzas is a psychic medium, shamanic practitioner, and an intuitive artist. She has over 13 years of experience assisting people with recognizing and overcoming the energetic blocks they have in this life. So empathetic, beautiful. Yeah, here, see, an imprint of Shiver Publishing. Beautiful guidebook. I don't use my guidebook much anymore. I feel like even the guidebook, I mean, this was a nice guidebook, but this publishing-wise, this is really, it's got great paper. It's full color. I do like how you've got a little bit of a larger image of the card here, but still you do have the image of the card in full color, so that you can just kind of take this to bed to kind of read up on things and not have to find the card, because you can see the card right in front of you, which is really lovely. And so let's take a peek here. Well, let's zoom in a little bit. So the dedication, we've got our, so it looks like it's broken into 3 parts: tools, external and internal cards. So let's see what it talks about. What is an empath? An empath, blah, blah, blah. Chiefly in science fiction, a person with the paranormal ability to apprehend the mental or emotional state of another individual. Or an empath, a person who is capable of feeling the emotions of others despite the fact that they themselves are not going through the same situation. Signs to be an empath, some of the terms they use, such as intention and energy, the 4 energy bodies of mind, emotion, spirit, and physical body. And then it talks about the chakra system as well, because there are, each of the chakra cards are there. The tools of an empath is the first section, and then we have physical tools. We have intention-driven tools. We have then how to use the cards, teaching things, an oracle deck, using it as an oracle deck, how to lay out the cards, these kinds of things, how you might interpret it, and then it goes into the cards themselves. So it starts with the tools, which we can see actually if we go here, which takes us through to the first 15 cards being tools. So let's take this last card, which is being stuck. And let's just read so we can get an idea of what the guidebook gives us here. So it says, in the merry-go-round of life, the moments that seem never-ending are preparing my soul for its greatness. Stuck in an endless array of negative emotions, a cycle of problems that may or may not be your own making can all quickly stop your journey forward dead in its track. Round and round it goes, where it stops nobody knows. An old nursery rhyme sung on many playgrounds. This is a perfect analogy of how the feelings and thoughts are sometimes experienced. Before you realize it, you are adding your own energies of thinking and feeling into this mix of a whirling dizziness, all the while trying to stop the cycle. The more you worry, the more it seems that the answers will never be found, and the farther you find yourself on the edge where the force of the spin is the strongest. Others may make suggestions telling you to just suck it up, that you are just too sensitive, that you need to get a thicker skin. Still, the merry-go-round of never-ending dark feelings continues as you realize that no one seems to truly understand. You've tried to be stronger, you've tried to make choices for yourself, but that pathway to stillness evades you. As an empath, due to your sensitivities of all the energetic experiences of life, you must remember the stillness resides in the center. It is true the center spins faster, but when you can find that center, the forces of the outer edge have less effect on your system. As a child, when you tried to hold on to the edge of a merry-go-round, you experienced much delight as you were thrown off. Giggling, you would find the courage once again to grab hold and hang on with all your might. It is as if the childlike innocence within had no worry or concern. As an adult, it is obvious that the responsibilities of life and all the energies involved quickly make innocence disappear. Deep inside, your spirit craves a new knowing of what you have lost in this grown-up world. In the center, it still can be found. Do this for the moments of feeling stuck. Become the best you can. Find a space free from the intrusions of the outside world, a playground of your own making. Dig deep within the core of your inner being. Feel the power of the spin and let it throw off all the heavy intrusions of the outside world. And when the answer presents itself, jump off the merry-go-round and begin to play again. So it definitely connects it with the idea of play. That is a large chunk of text without any paragraphs or anything like that. I think that would make it a little bit difficult to just jump in here and grab something out. Like if you were in the midst of a reading, there's not really any keywords. Trying to remember if that was like that with this one. I really didn't find the need for using, I don't use the guidebooks a lot in Oracle decks. You know that if you've watched enough of my reviews. When I do want to refer to a guidebook, I do like to just be able to grab a base idea of what it is and keep on moving. I do think from some of the words that the cards that I have seen, that it's not going to be too difficult to use this deck without the guidebook. So once you probably read through it once to get an idea, you're probably going to be golden with it. But I did like the analogy there. So there's the guide. That's an example of the guidebook. Again, here's the backs. Obviously these are black, and they have, which I'm not a big fan of decks with the names on the back, so they've taken that off. I mean, they've definitely, for me, improved the overall with the matte cardstock. They've kept the beautiful gilding. They've taken the name off the back. They've really made this how I would love to see this be remade. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers that that might happen, because as I said, love that deck. Okay. So, and I think we probably looked, the box is lovely. Schiffer does a lot. It's that magnetic box, just like the other one. Has sort of an army green in here, real earthy looking. Have a picture of Steve Wilson and Michelle Montuzas here. Again, I love the gloss and then the non-gloss. It's not matte box kind of, but it's satin. So that really pops out nicely. So it's just beautifully done. Schiffer's always been great with their boxes. It's just the shiny cardstock I don't like about Schiffer. So I'm excited to see that they're shifting that. So again, this does have more cards. Is it the same thick? Let's check. Yeah, so this is a little bit lower. 48. I'm guessing the cardstock is fairly similar. 49, yeah. I'm guessing the cardstock is fairly similar in weight to this. It's just not the shine. The shine isn't there. The gloss, the lamination's not there. Okay, so let's zip in here and take a peek. Again, her art style is very primitive. I am using a similar, I guess if you like the Raven's Prophecy is that pastels or chalk type drawings, you can really see that in sort of like, say, if you, the birds and things like that. This is definitely use of pastels or a chalk form. I would say pastels versus oil pastels, but I'm not an expert at pastels, so I could be wrong. So in the tools section, we have the first set of tools we have are the actual chakras. And it starts not from the root, but it starts up at the crown and works its way back down. Let me grab myself to the beginning of the set so we can kind of keep track of what sets we're in. So again, we have the crown chakra being connected to the source. We have the third eye chakra, having your intuition open. We have the throat chakra for communicating truth. We have the heart chakra, that idea of surrendering to love. Beautiful. I love this. Is very reminiscent of what we see in the shaman's shamanic healing deck. We have the, let's see what they say here. Whose will is it? The idea of will. Is it the direction of my steps forward followed from my inner compass? Here we have the sacral chakra with orange. This is that idea of our passions, and they're giving this idea of our emotional barometer here. And then the root chakra, excuse me. You know, where we are rooted and grounded here, the sense of physicality that's here. I really like this one. So we have the set of chakras. There's several sets in this deck, and I love decks that do that. So we have the chakra set. Here we have the 4 elements. So we have the element of water, which is gorgeous. Love this element of air. Love this element of fire. And love this element of earth. I love the layerings of the earth and then the earth that we have there. So we have the chakras, then we have the 4 elements. Then we have the card for manifestation, which I think is really gorgeous. Let's see what day, skipping the elements here, because I think we probably know the elements. Today I give myself the opportunity to manifest. My energy is abundant, and I attract to myself that which is needed for my path. And then we have shielding, so more tools. We have the shielding card here. My light becomes my armor, so creating your shield. I love to have a card like that. We have focus, so focusing that energy on the arrow point, which I really love. We have clearing. We have the idea of perhaps smudging, that kind of idea with a tool with the and wafting the smudge smoke around. Of course, you can clear with sound and sprays and all kinds of other ways than smoking things, blowing smoke, if that's like me an issue. But you certainly get that connotation there, which is gorgeous. So that would be the set of tools. Now, then we have the phases of the moon. So then I think we move into external. Oh, wait, is this still part? External tools, maybe? It was like, the first one was tools. Yeah, now we're looking at external things, such as the Earth, sun, moon phases, mountains, love that. Strength, the acorn here to the oak tree. Then we have the 4 seasons, which I, again, love. We have spring, summer, autumn. It's beautiful. And I love this winter with the stag. Isn't that gorgeous? So we have the 4 seasons. Of course, with the sun, we also have the moon with the phases card. I love this sun. Obviously, this is what's on the box, the top of the box, but I love that graphic. But we do have, so we don't need this phases, I guess, is more of a cycle. So we have a gorgeous moon. Look at that. So we have the sun and the moon, so those are kind of a set. I love the idea of gates, going forward through a gate. I love that we have a directional card. There is a deck that I absolutely love that has the directions. I believe it's the Mystical Shaman. And you kind of ask a question for each of the directions when the card comes up. And it's something I'm really a fan of in decks, applying those kind of same questions. So I love to see that. We have holiday. So this is kind of cute, right? We kind of have that Charlie Brown Christmas here. It's an interesting card. Let's take a peek at that. I'm just curious here. Let's take a look at... In the customs of the holidays, the opportunity to celebrate is the gift that awaits. Throughout the year, there are holidays that have meaning and rituals attached to them. For some, these special days have very deep meaning and love attached to them. For others, there is nothing but pain and discomfort because the meaning cannot be lived up to. There's also the duality aspect to these holidays. Opposing religious viewpoints can create very distinct energetic lines of heaviness as they battle for dominance. To the sensitive empath, holidays are quite often a time of retreat. Can I find the hidden meaning of truth in the ritual of holiday? I love that challenge. What are the thoughts, memories, and experiences associated with special days? Is this a situation that has emotions surrounding it that are triggered by something or someone from the past? So that's interesting because in a reading, if this came up, you could think about, okay, what's underlying this situation that we may not realize is driving it or driving the emotional response to it? So I like that actually. Here we have a predator card. So obviously this is an external, but they relinquish in this, they are saying to relinquish my role as prey in their journey, that there are people out there that are predators, but we have to sort of step away from being the prey. We have a hero, so we have sort of that, you know, the villain and the hero kind of duality here. I love the laurel wreath there. Now, there are two cards that I've seen the names of, and I'm kind of like, it doesn't resonate with me. This crowd surfing is one. The world is filled with the noise of thoughts and the emotions of those who gather, and like quicksand, it soon suffocates my experience. So it's the idea of experiencing the energy of being with one person can be challenging, especially if you're an empath or you're just open to energy. And so this idea of being in a crowd of people can be really overwhelming. It's something, I don't claim to be an empath exactly, but that's definitely for somebody who's an introvert as well, that can be a very difficult thing. And so what's interesting is that you could look at this in two ways. Being overwhelmed by a situation, because the idea of crowd surfing I'm also claustrophobic, so being in a room, a dark room, pounding music, people all smashed together, and this idea of crowd surfing gives me a sense of panic, right? So there is that sense of, but maybe there is that, like with the, I think it's the Hanged Man in the Prisma Tarot, this idea of you need to sort of relax into it to get up above it so that you can keep moving. So I think there's a lot that I can do with this card, even though it was kind of surprising to see the name. I absolutely love this desert card here. I think it is so beautiful. It makes me think of my friend Larissa, who lives in the desert. In fact, I will set this aside to take a picture of it because it makes me think of her. Chaos, beautiful chaos. See, this is panic-inducing chaos, whereas this looks like beautiful chaos. Adversity. Now, how interesting is this? Because the image is so beautiful. The story of the lotus is also, we have it doesn't entirely look like a lotus to me. There's probably a variety of types of lotuses. But still, the story of the lotus is one of overcoming obstacles. And by its wisdom, it gained its petals, which open one impurity. I'm just kind of skimming here. The muck of your mesh. Yeah, so I'm really drawn to the concept of lotuses. I have a tattoo of one because it takes the muck and the mire in order to make this. So this would be easy read for me. I love the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that that is a gorgeous image. Love it. Love it. Here we have the open heart. Authenticity. So the idea of the mask, you know, is the mask on? Is the mask off? Do you take it off? Do we sometimes need to have a mask? My mask is my shield, but my true life shines in. So being careful about hiding behind a false front of how I really feel, but it also begs the question, because I think of the way that they address this, that there you could best beg the question, is there a time, is there a different way perhaps to shield and create boundaries than having to wear a mask? So I think that's lovely. So then we have a set of cards. Again, you know I'm working on an Oracle deck, and mine has sets like this, and other Oracle decks that do. So it's clearly something that I really appreciate as a reader to have. I love it. So here we have the past. Then we have the present, what seed is growing right now. And then we have the future. Now this was interesting to me because it has Ingwas from the runes. So I'm currently teaching a rune class, and so I was kind of surprised to see this because there's not really anything like that, and the rest of the deck are quite colorful. Now this works for me because there is a rune poem associated obviously with each one of the runes, and on this one it talks about the god Ing, who, and I'm not gonna be able to quote it exactly, but basically he rode on his wagon, headed to the east and across the waves, basically, that sort of idea. So we have this idea of forward motion and moving into the future. So I totally get that, but let's take a peek to see. This is number 39. It stands out because it's so simple, you know, to the degree of, did I miss a card? 36, and then we went to 30. Oh no, we have the present, but it has a different card. Okay, just a second. Oh, I'm in the wrong deck. I had this sitting out there. I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right here. But I'm in the wrong guidebook. Like, wait. What do I do with the guide? Oh, it's over here. This is what happens, right? Okay, so let's check out 38. No, 39. There are many teachings about the future unfolding. How many beliefs? Interesting if they address that, because I think people would wonder. Yeah, it doesn't mention that this is Ingwas. I'm sure yeah, I don't see anything about it being the rune Ingwas, but that's what it is. And it works with what that rune means, but I think that most people, if you weren't familiar with runes, would really wonder what that image was. So you'd think some sort of a description of why that they chose that particular image, because it doesn't really... I love it that it's there because of that, but I think that there should be some sort of a description or reason why, because that would be confusing, I think. But for me, I do love that. And again, I love that there's a past, present, and future. So I'm making my piles over here. This is really beautiful. Purity. And I love this card. I did peek and see this card that says Stardust. I think that is an absolutely beautiful card. And I love it. This is an interesting one. Look at all these little containers. Let's take a peek here. I love this. I think it's gorgeous. As safe as a box may seem, it's an experience that can also be of emptiness. Knowing where we are, where we begin and where we end. This need for energetic boundaries, healthy boundaries. Boundaries realized from fear and hurt. So it's talking about having healthy boundaries, but making sure that your beliefs, your little boxes, your little containers of things, making sure that those are actually healthy boundaries and not locking away of things instead of dealing with things in some way. For me, this would also, because there is actually a Christian speaker whose name is Rob Bell, and he is much more of a modern Christian speaker. And so he talks, in the past, I've listened to a lot of his things and seen a lot of his things as I was kind of coming to trying to reconcile my past experience with fundamental Christianity. And one of the things that really stuck with me is that he talks a lot about how when we come across some truth, wherever that might be, however that truth might come to us, and it doesn't fit in our bucket, we can see it and we can feel it and we can recognize it as truth, but it doesn't fit into our bucket of truth, our bucket of what we believe. The answer isn't to throw out the truth, but the answer is to get a bigger bucket. And so, of course, when I see that, this is probably how I would address this card. That there is some way in which our ideas and our beliefs are being challenged. And if it is being challenged in a way that is truth, then we need to not block that off, but just get a bigger bucket. So I love it. Here we have Entanglements. This has a feel of the Chaos card. So, but chaos and craziness is a little bit different than being tied up and entangled. So I like having both of those cards. I love this balance card. Again, like the Ingwas, it's a very different look than the rest of the deck. It would have been kind of nice, I think, to have, and these are just picky things, it would have been kind of nice to have it just drawn out in chalk, because we have such a, you know, chalk feel to all of the cards, even the Ingwas one. And so to have this simply drawn out in chalk, I would have preferred than what looks to be more of a graphic. But I still, in the midst of this color and everything, there is a coolness and a clearness and a calmness about this balance that I do also think works energetically. Resistance. Surrender. That's interesting, right? Because sometimes there will be no white flags above my door. I don't know who sings that. Dido? So now I'm gonna have to get that, play that song when I'm done. Is there a time for surrender? Is there not a time? Is this not the time to surrender? Is this the time to surrender? There's a lot that could do. I love that. This says a timeline. Very interesting. On surrender, it says, when the answers cannot be found, I surrender so that I may listen to the answers that reside in stillness. Sometimes we do need to fly the flag of surrender. In my experience of time, I walk forward openly, ready to choose that knowing the lessons fill me with wisdom. It's kind of an awkward sentence, but these questions at the end, I think, are probably between this and this, I feel like it's the way you're going to get your quick hit. Do I fear the choices that are before me? Are there recurring choices because of the fear to choose? Am I letting my timeline unfold before me? Is this situation presenting because it is part of my timeline? So you've got a crossroads here, which to me, this looks more like a crossroads card than a timeline. But I think that works, and you can get a lot of mileage out of that in a reading. Pedestal. Each moment, every person, each equal in power is a puzzle piece that has a placement in the tapestry of life. Have I given my power to a belief that no longer serves, right? Relationships, beliefs, all kinds of ways. That devil card, am I abdicating my power over to somebody or something that I put up on a pedestal? I love it. Non-duality. So this is showing the center where it becomes gray. It's about labeling things. It's black and white labeling. And what's the gray? I think I said that in live chat yesterday, that life isn't black and white. Life is gray. It really is all about where is this gray point. It's very little in life that is so cut and dry. So I do like that. Chameleon. The world is a place of beauty and wonder, each individual. Am I blending with my surroundings to create a feeling of safety? Am I losing? From what I understand, chameleons, and somebody's I'm sure could tell me if I'm wrong. I thankfully have wonderful people that have explained it, which I think is amazing. That chameleons don't actually change color in order to have camouflage. They do it as a reaction to their environment, which I think is something that is perfect when you think about somebody that is empathetic. And all of us, I think the more open we are to the energy around us, we are going to react to that. And so that I think you can do a lot with. It's beautiful. Validation. Oh, it's very strong fist here, right? Do you crave validation of another? What would happen if you didn't need this affirmation of worthiness from outside, but instead getting it from the inside? which is interesting because then we have the specialness. My unique corners and edges all fit perfectly into the shared goals of others. Is the drive to be special sometimes the gift of similarity gets lost in separation? So this is interesting, right? Because I think these two could kind of be similar. So I would probably take this a little bit differently. Like one is a need for outside validation, and maybe another as being an internal understanding that we're all different and unique and special in our own way. So we don't need to get that from outside. That might be what I would do with those two, because otherwise I think those could have a similar way of reading. Phoenix with the beginnings is beautiful. I love that there is a story card. This is your story. Love it. Now, this was the other one that I was like, gaslighting. Like, that is so interesting of a word choice. In my power of self and intuition, I am safe as those who are needy and manipulative as they find their way to my door. Am I feeling a sense of personal fear in my relationship? Am I being disempowered? See, I'm not entirely sure about this image versus what is saying. Of all the challenging people who an empath can attract into a relationship, a narcissist or someone who practices the art of gaslighting becomes one of our biggest lessons. We write attract because it is very evident on the path of many empaths. You are one of great light and power, but most do not realize this. You are one of the healers. In the space of not understanding your gift, it becomes very difficult to have the strength and discernment needed to navigate the truth of your relationships. This is where you begin to attract to you those who take advantage of your loving nature. So I get that. I see, to me, I guess it's more the term. And I'm not sure what the term gaslighting means, so I'm going to have to look that up. But I can certainly see that idea of of what are you going to attract? What are you going to be pulled to yourself, like moths to a flame? What are you going to be attracted to, like a moth to a flame? So I'll have to look a little bit more into this idea of gaslighting to see how you would read this, just as in a general reading versus this deck I know is focused around kind of helping an empath. I think that it's going to work beautifully as just a divination deck, an oracle deck in general. And so I'll have to see how, other than the like moth to a flame, how would I view this particular term and image. So I'm going to leave that one out. And I love the stuff. We already read that one. So there we have it. Let me zoom back out, which I think I've mixed up. Yeah. There we go. I think these were just regular cards. I want to take a picture of that. I want to check into that. So we have some of our sets here. We have the past, present, and future. We have the chakras. So you have each of the 7 chakras. We have the elements. We have the 4 seasons. We have the sun and the moon. And then we also have this idea of the predator and the hero kind of dichotomy there as well. So those are just some sets of things that were in the deck that I quite love. Again, I'm going to leave that out for a minute because I want to take a picture and just see how they shuffle. Wonderful, as does my other deck. The other one shuffles well, but you have that beautiful swish, I'm sure when I get to that part, of matte cardstock, which is lovely. You can see that bridge is really beautiful. And I know, again, do as I say, not as I do. If you want to preserve your gilded edges, you shouldn't riffle shuffle. I do on all of mine. Let me just show you, just so you can see. This has been well used. Well used. So you can certainly see, I think, the dulling a little bit. And you can certainly, I'm sure, see on the corners. But I'm really happy with this. Like, I'm okay with my decks looking like they've been used. Because, oops, now I'm going to get it all whopper-jawed. I just want to feel if the cardstock, so that if you have this one, actually, yeah, no, yeah. This is typical Schiffer cardstock, so it really you behooves you to overhand. You certainly can't bridge these. This is actually beautiful. This is really beautiful. If this is what Schiffer is going to start doing with their cardstock, I am really excited to see that. It really shows, I think, that Schiffer has listened to what our problem, a lot of, not everybody, okay? Some people like laminated cards. Some people do like very shiny cardstock. So I get, you know, I can't say just because I don't like it, doesn't mean but I think a lot of people, the Schiffer cardstock can be overly thick and overly laminated. And so I think that that is probably a common complaint. And so on the basis of this deck, and there may be others like it that I just haven't gotten yet, I'm really impressed with that cardstock. So let's just see a couple of these cards. Light at the end of the tunnel. From the middle, we have the fire. See, we have the light at the end of the tunnel. This idea of transformation and power that's rising up. And it is going to allow us to step into our own authenticity. That's really beautiful. Let's pull another one. Get a bigger bucket. Yeah, go into the purity of truth. If it doesn't fit what you think the world is, it's time to expand that. And then we have the solar plexus chakra, which has the, well, at least for me, is about confidence and that idea of willpower, right? But I like this idea of when we come across truth, don't shut yourself off from that. Open, again, this is how I would read this. This is not necessarily how somebody else would. But, you know, open yourself up to the purity of that truth, even if it doesn't fit with your current beliefs, right? And that's the way that you're going to be able to move forward with confidence and sort of trusting your instinct to come across truth and acknowledge truth as you see it, and not have to have everything so labeled tightly, and this is my beliefs and nothing is going to exist outside of that. So I think that that's quite lovely as well. I think I am going to love working with these cards here. I'm really excited. It's just a random find in the store. You could also, I'm sure, do some kind of a light and shadow reading or some kind of a blend. I'm certainly a big lover of blending of the decks, as you well know. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. Again, just a random. I know I have a lot of things, of decks that I need to get done reviewing, but so I could give this a shuffle and actually use it, I needed to run through it. So I thought I'd do that really quickly, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Again, this is called the Empathetic Oracle by Steve Wilson and Michelle Matuzas. Which is, again, the same artist as the Shamanic Healing Oracle cards that some of us know and love.